All right, this is GloucesterCast 293. It is September 19th, 2018. We have Charlene, Delaney.
Oh, no, it's August.
What did I say?
September.
You know why? Want to know why I said September?
Yeah, because you're
It's wishful
senile.
thinking.
Because I'm cooked, A. But besides being cooked, it feels like this is the first, drastically dry,
Right.
nice day.
Beautiful day.
I'm in a September state of mind.
It came in last night and it was so nice.
Thank
So great.
Christ.
We paid the price, though, didn't we?
3 Saturdays in a row of basically washouts.
Right.
3 in a row of 3 monstrous Gloucester retail tourism weekends,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which some
Like
restaurant
the block party last weekend.
block party.
Waterfront Festival.
Waterfront
yeah.
Festival in Manchester.
Awful.
Believe me, we've taken the blows at the chamber
Oh my
over
God!
all of this, and it's not our fault.
No,
Oh.
it's not.
It's the weather.
Of
Yeah.
course not.
It's the
And then
weatherman's
yesterday, the Waterfront Festival, I had to be there at 2:00. I just got out of the car and it started pouring.
It came
Right.
down.
And
Really
it,
come
I
down.
mean, it came down and made huge puddles over there,
Quite suddenly,
like
too.
in front of the booths.
It was a
And you
disaster.
felt
I
so
could see it.
bad.
I mean, if you
coming
look-
in over the water, but it didn't.
If anybody looked at a
long to
radar,
come
if
in.
anybody looked at a radar map, you knew that was coming
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it was clearly defined. Just west of us, moving directly east, this mass of yellow and red on the radar. I have the
Well,
you get the app.
I got
really.
in my car up there on the hill, and you could see west from me. You could literally see
The
the sheets of rain coming
Wow.
down.
Yeah, like
And
a
I
defined
knew-
line, right?
Yeah, you could see
I see
it.
it
You
coming
could
in
see
over the water. It's just, that was really quick.
All right, I'm going to go back and say it is GloucesterCast 293. We're taping on August 19th, 2018. We're joined with Charlene Delaney. You can say hi, Charlene.
Hi.
Charlene.
Morning.
Susan Lipsette is here,
Good morning, Gloucester.
bringing. What are we supposed to call them? Because I don't want to be corrected.
Well, there's a big controversy in France, apparently. I've always called them pain au chocolat. Here we call them chocolate croissants. But in France, a lot of people think they're supposed to be called chocolatine. And they actually had a bill introduced a few months ago in their legislature to require these to be called chocolatine rather than pain au chocolat, because pain au chocolat can be any kind of bread that has chocolate, where the chocolatine refers
Very
to
specifically.
More
is
like a
more
croissant.
specific, refers to what we would know as a chocolate croissant.
Now, that's a perfect example of, all the of legislators that have way more important things that they should be legislating on, but they waste time
In France,
on
Well, that's
bullshit
what they
like
said
that.
in the article I had read about it. We have other stuff
Yeah.
to talk about, like pesticides and
Right.
those kinds of things. But they are very serious about food, and a
And
lot
what
of
they
the
name
rules
it.
about
Right.
food there are legislated.
Right.
Like the shape of a croissant, whether it's straight across or curved. It's determined by whether or not it has real butter or some other sorts of fats.
Because so much of their revenue comes from their food industry.
Exactly.
So they're highly, highly protective of it.
I was
They
watching,
just love it too. I mean,
Yes.
and I was watching a thing on yesterday morning. So Saturday's off. Saturday morning, I wake up before Kate, and I don't want to disturb her in bed, so I go out and I watch, my shows. And
cartoons.
Watch this show, Ugly Delicious. Have
I
you
love
heard of it?
Ugly Delicious.
Yes.
With David Chang.
Yeah.
Love David Chang.
And I was watching the one about pizza. So
Yeah.
this relates to what you were talking
Yeah.
about. So there's Neapolitan pizza. There is a society,
Yes,
and you
I
could
saw
tell
that.
you could tell it's a total.
That British guy, wasn't it?
No, it's the Neapolitan guy. This
Yeah, it was
guy.
an Italian guy.
He's so they have to certify Neapolitan pizza. It has to get their stamp saying it's certified Neapolitan style pizza. They have to use the buffalo mozzarella from Campania
Right.
and what's the
Basil.
No, the tomatoes from
San Marzano.
San Marzano tomatoes.
That's what I use.
It has to have when you break open the crust.
Right.
You can't have a yeasty smell. It has to be a smell of
Fully fermented.
fully,
all of it, yeah.
you can't no sour
really?
smell or anything like that.
Fun.
So they
I
have,
remember
they have
that.
Yeah.
so this guy wrote out the list of what the criteria to carry their stamp.
Right.
But and then towards the end, one of the New York writer that is always in Ugly Delicious,
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
He's kind of the cynical of the group,
Right.
cynic of the group, and he is saying it kind of seems like they're making this so that you have to buy the products from their region. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's kind of like a scam.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can make Neapolitan
Right.
pizza.
Right.
And
No, but a lot of countries do. When we
Right.
were in Japan a few months ago, we went to a place that's known for Wagyu beef. And they bring out the piece of beef, and it has to have a purple chrysanthemum stamped on the fat. You know, like that purple
Yeah.
ink
Yep, yep.
that they stamp on meat.
Right.
And then they show you the paperwork. Like the meat has a certificate that
Right.
they have to show you to prove
Well, it's because they're probably paying so much per pound
Right.
that
that
certifies
it's
the
real Kobe
authenticity.
beef.
Yeah.
That's real Kobe beef.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it's,
boy,
it's
was it
probably a
good,
source
though.
of pride too, a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
My guess is most of it has to
But
do
they
with
have very
finance.
strict
Yes,
laws
finance.
about the meat.
Yeah. So I didn't introduce Kim. Kim Smith is
good
with us.
morning.
Yeah,
Gloucester.
we got you carried away with food.
Well, you can't blame us. I have to mention that we have tickets. Charlene got a ticket today. I have to get her another one. We just ran out. To Cape Ann Community Cinema. The listings for Cape Ann Community Cinema are in the show. A link to the listings are in the show notes, and I always stick it at the top of the blog.
Do you want to hear how much I love that place? We went again last week and saw the most interesting documentary called Three Identical Strangers about, it's a true story, triplets who were separated at birth
Oh, wow.
and never knew they were triplets or had
Oh,
siblings.
you had siblings.
Until they started bumping into each other. You walk down the street and someone says, "Hey Ed," and your name's not Ed. It's like, "Oh, you should meet my friend Ed. He looks a lot like you." So you go over there and they found each other.
Oh my God.
But there's a very dark part of the story about how the adoptions were done and why, and it
What
was
country did it
my
take
whole
place in?
family. New York.
New York. Wow.
My whole family loved it. It was a really,
So-
really good movie.
Say what you will about Rob Newton and you know stuff.
Yeah.
That place does carry
Very
great.
interesting film.
Very
And he
interesting
was
films.
so nice. He kept coming to see if we were comfortable. Could we hear okay?
Yeah.
It was like being a guest in his home. What a lovely place.
It
and a lovely man.
we are blessed to have. I feel like that we are blessed to have a place that showcase. I don't have the time to go see these films. In my past life, I used to make time to go. I love these kind of films.
I love the Indies.
and I don't get to see them anymore, and I miss it. But it is it. You know, if you're going to talk about certain criteria to stamp as a great city, and having an art house cinema would be one of the
Yeah, I agree.
criteria.
Yeah, I
And
agree
we
with
have,
you.
and we have an art house cinema.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I saw Dead in the Water there a couple
Oh,
of
did
weeks
you?
ago,
Yeah.
and it was really good.
It's
I
been.
just
I
love
think
the
it's-
vibe of that
I think
place.
I think Dead in the Water's been.
It's going to be
cut.
showed the first of. He's going to show it 2 more times: 1st of September and 1st of October. Too.
It's been recut to show more of the perspective from the government agencies
Yes,
as well.
yeah.
So I'd like
It's
to
really-
see it. I'd like
it's
to see
really
it in
good. No,
I
it's
saw
new.
It I saw it in its original incarnation. I'd love
Yeah.
to see it in the recut version.
No, it's really
So,
good. And it was a packed house that night.
Charlene, you're here to speak about the case. Well, first I have to mention this. We feel everybody probably feels bad. No one feels more bad than me for having Daisy Nell, Captain Stan, Randy O'Neill,
Oh,
and Heath Ellis
I know. I'm so sorry.
here last week, and our recording, my recording equipment. You have to take. I have to. But this is on my shoulders. This is my failure. Somehow my recording equipment failed. That's why you didn't hear the Gloucester till the end at the intro of this podcast, because I can't rely on that awesome app. It was awesome while it was working. It's gone on the fritz, and I'm devastated by it. But I feel terrible that our guests last week that took time out of their day to come here on a Sunday morning away from their families, and I lost the audio. And so we're gonna go over a lot of the topics that we didn't that we talked about last week that no one heard. So forgive me for that, please. Charlene Delaney is here. wearing her chamber hat today, right? Because
Yes.
you wear many hats, but this is you're wearing your chamber hat today.
Yes.
Speaking about the Cape Ann license, low number Cape Ann license plate auction,
Yes.
which is going to be. So is it all online?
It's all online.
All online.
It starts tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock and runs through September the 3rd at 10 p.m. It closes at 10 p.m. And all the plates, you can preview the plates today still on lovecapeann.com.
Oh, I'm going to go.
And you can see it ranges, there's reserves on some of the plates. The number one plate is a $25,000 reserve.
25,000.
Yes.
Wow.
Ooh, go
Because
sell some lobsters,
that's
Joey.
the lowest that a charity plate has gotten is 25,000.
Yeah. No,
for
that's
their
great.
number one plate.
Yeah.
And then it goes up from there. The plates through 5 are $10,000 reserve, and then 6 through 10 is $5,000, and then everything else is about $1,000, except the double-digit plates like 22, 33, 44. Those double-digit plates are $2,500, and the $100 plate is $2,500, and the $99 plate is $2,500 reserve.
Okay.
So,
But you
other
can see
than
that you don't have to remember all that.
No, you can
because
go
we
on.
have a link in the show notes. If you go to the show notes, www.lovecapeann.com, and you can
Yes.
preview all these.
Yes, you can preview those. And if you don't want to bid on the auction plates, you can still buy a Cape Ann plate. And there's a direct link on lovecapeann.com to the registry. And you can go in, and your plate is mailed to you in 8 to 10 days. And it comes with your sticker and your new registration. You don't have to turn in your old plate. Your old plate, you can hang it on the wall. You can do whatever you want with it. You don't have to turn it in anymore.
You can save it for the
And
for
then
the next vehicle.
People
that's
are
in the-
making birdhouses out of them or whatever.
when you buy the number one or your special one, you get to keep that forever, right?
Yes.
Yes. So
You,
as long as
any
as
plate
long
that
as
you buy, you keep forever. And every year, there's even those plates. All those plates. If you bid on a plate and you spend $25,000 for the number one plate, everything except $60 of that $25,000 is tax deductible as a charitable donation to the Cape Ann Community Foundation, which is
goes
the
to
501c.
schools, yeah.
And that issues grants to nonprofits on Cape Ann. And we've already given out like $25,000 in the last 2 years to Cape Ann nonprofits. So the more money we get, the more grants we're able to give. And so that's why we're auctioning off. We've always saved these low number plates, and now we're auctioning them off.
I got 111
Oh,
for Kate for Valentine's Day last year.
wow, that's an awesome one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great number.
Yeah.
111.
Yeah,
So if
Kate
you ever
has
see
a-
the
Oh,
tape-
look carefully when you're parked in my yard. every
Kate
other
has
night.
a Kate has a plate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was a Valentine. Wasn't that nice?
So
Isn't that a
nice.
thoughtful
That's
Valentine
what-
present?
that's what I
So,
thought.
so think about this. Any big baller out there, you want to be a real big baller, get one of these low plates for your loved one.
A
Yes.
That's a
tax deductible Valentine.
And you're a CPA, Susan.
I am.
You can speak to that.
Yeah.
That's legit, right?
What, the deduction?
So how does that deduction work for
Anything
people that might
that's
not know?
in excess of what the normal plate would cost.
The normal plate costs
is
$60
tax
every 2
deductible.
years.
I will bring up though that the benefit of that deduction is somewhat reduced by the fact that I think fewer people will be itemizing their deductions this year and in the foreseeable future because the standard deduction was raised to a much higher
Yeah.
amount than in the past.
But the
But
last
high roller kind of people will still be itemizing.
the
their
the last great deduction you have is charitable deduction. That's about
No.
the only
That's one
one
of
that
the-
the last one that you can really get that everybody can get.
And you mentioned earlier that that 95% of the donation goes to the Cape Ann Foundation.
Yeah.
Right. It's
So they have a
95
low
of-
overhead on this.
Right.
We have about a 5% overhead on this foundation because we don't spend any money on marketing. For the last 8 months or so, I've been like marketing.
What's this Cape Ann? What's the kickoff rally all about at the Drift Cafe?
Okay, at the Drift Cafe tomorrow night, we're just kind of kicking it off, and we're gonna do some video promotions there of all the nonprofits that have won grants so far are going to be there talking about what they're using the money for.
Oh, that's
Will there be
And we're
cocktails
going to
involved?
video that. The Drift would very much like you to buy cocktails there.
Yeah,
They
sounds
have
Susan, you went. So the Drift Cafe is tomorrow, Monday night,
5 to 6.
at 5 to 6 at the
6,
Drift Cafe.
yes.
If anybody would like to go for the kickoff party for the Cape Ann low number Cape Ann license plate
Plate.
auction. Susan went to the Seafood Throwdown this
I
past
did.
Thursday,
I did.
and
It was so
and she
interesting.
actually live blogged it for us.
Oh, wonderful.
I
This
didn't
was-
realize I was
that was
live
a-
blogging it. I just sent Joe the pictures and pointed out that no one was using bacon in all their recipes, which he does in all of his recipes. I said, look, they're making fish without any bacon on it. No bacon in sight.
Couldn't help herself. She had to throw a little dig at me. But why don't you
And I
explain?
didn't realize that made me like reporting live.
I thought that was your. I thought that's exactly what you're doing because you wanted it to be on the blog.
It's fine if it's on the blog, but I would have maybe tried harder on the photos.
Well,
Just sending them for you to see what
Oh,
people
yeah.
made.
So what did people make?
Why don't you give us a
They were-
rundown?
all right,
Who
here
the
were-
people were and
There
what they
were
presented?
2 chefs.
Okay.
I don't know how they were chosen. One woman from the Common Crow, which I didn't even know they had a chef. I guess they would have one
do
since
have
they
that
have
food.
prepared
Yeah.
meals there.
They have-
I just never thought about it.
By
She's
the way,
behind the scenes.
by the way, they have delicious prepared foods.
I
there.
bought food there,
Yeah.
and it's always been very good. I just never knew where. I thought maybe they got it somewhere else, and I don't know. And a man who was the chef is the chef at Feather and Wedge in Rockport. And they were allowed to bring 3 ingredients with them from home, like they do on Top Chef, secret,
Right.
their own stuff that they can't live without. And they had no idea what the seafood would be until they got there. So they got there, they were given a fish, which turned out to be king whiting, which I didn't know anything about.
Delicious.
But it's a mean,
It's-
scary looking fish.
Yeah.
It's also called silver hake,
Mhm.
but it's not a close relative of what we know as hake, which is white hake.
Right.
I did a little research and talked to some people, and this fish has teeth, and just looks kind of
Mm.
mean.
Just so you know, this property right here,
Yeah,
when my grandfather bought it,
yeah. 1953.
1953, this place packed out 100,000 pounds of whiting a day. My first job, my cousin
Wow.
Frank and I, first job
Yeah,
was to stand. So my father would be outdoors,
yeah,
and the boat they would dump. They had the big booms that would go out into the fish holes.
yeah.
They'd fill up these big baskets with fish and ice. It would land on the scale. My father would weigh it on the beam scale,
Yeah,
and they would dump it into the conveyor, and the conveyor would dump it where the fish tanks are now. That was the pen room. The fish would come in from a conveyor from outdoors, and big piles of whiting
whiting.
just filled that room. I mean, that room.
So you wanted the whiting in those days.
They absolutely, that whiting was sold to A&P markets all over the country.
It fed the world for a
Fed the
while.
world.
Yeah, for a
World
while.
And what would they
And
say
Frank
with
and
it?
I'll explain. Frank and I, our first job at 9 years old was to sit by the conveyor and pick out the king whiting so that they would go into boxes and be shipped to New York City for more money. They didn't get processed.
Into like cat food or something.
No, I'm going to tell you right now.
It's delicious.
No. What I'm going to tell you right now, whiting is. I'm not going to say my favorite because it's my favorite fish to eat, not my favorite
Fin
seafood to
fish.
eat. My favorite fin fish to eat. Fried
Wow.
whiting
It's so
is fucking outrageously delicious.
Yes.
it's like sweet candy.
It is
Yes,
like
it is.
it
Really
comes
good.
so you take the head off
Yeah.
and the guts come out with one little scoop of your
Yeah.
finger.
They had a
You take the
catering chef, a personal chef there, Harding, his last name was Harding, giving demos on how to fillet the whiting. So of course I was in the front row.
It's the easiest
learning
thing
how to
ever.
do that. And he made it look pretty simple.
Simple. Take the head off, cut the tail off. You go
The
against.
spine came out in one piece.
Right.
One piece.
So
That
you
was so wonderful.
You flour it. You fry it. You eat it like corn on the cob. You go like this. A big chunk of meat, just like this, with a nice fry on it,
Yeah,
comes right off the bone. No bones. You will not get a bone.
No.
right.
Comes right into your mouth. And you the salt on it. I could eat if you filled this plate like this
Yeah.
with fried whiting, and I like them a little on the smaller side. I would eat the whole thing. They're similar to eating fried smelt. Have you ever had fried smelt?
Never had, but I've seen them on menus.
Oh my God, they're delicious.
These are
delicious.
fried smelt are good. Fried whiting
Whiting is
are
even better.
outrageous.
Does anybody serve them around here?
No one serves them around here
I
because
see smelts on menus.
you
No
see
one sells
you
them
see
here.
fried smelt on menus around here more often than you see fried whiting.
I've never
But
seen
but
whiting.
fried smelt aren't caught around here. But it's
Well,
just
I
because
asked them.
people.
I asked the people running the throwdown, like, what do they do with the whiting they catch? Because they were saying no one uses them or wants them around here. And they said, one guy told me,
They go
who's
to
in
New
the
York.
seafood business, they send them to New York. But then another guy who was in charge said, oh, they just throw them back in the water when they catch them. So I didn't know who to believe.
Oh, they get shipped
No,
to New York.
because Angela and Sabathia, they cook them all the time. They
Yeah.
love them.
My family cooks them all. the
You're a
time.
family cook.
Yeah.
Where do you get them, though? Because I don't see them in the markets. You just get them from people who
The
catch
boats.
them?
Yeah,
The boats.
The boats.
Yeah.
I'll save you a batch next time they come in the bait. I'll pull
Well,
a
I
bunch
got my
of
deep fryer that I use for cronuts and donuts, so I'm all set.
I'll put. How long are you in town for? Another 2
A
weeks.
few- 2 or 3 weeks.
If I get some the next couple days, I'll give you a call when they
All
come
right.
in. All right, and they're amazing.
All right.
Anyway, sorry for getting off track.
Oh,
so
no,
tell me how it went.
So they had this caterer
Oh,
chef.
one more thing.
What?
The king whiting
Yeah.
you make a soup with.
Yeah.
The small whiting you fry. Go ahead. It's called
Well, these
miango.
were big
Isn't
ones.
that the one
These were
that
kids.
Finish 'em.
Angela makes? The
Called-
soup too
miango.
that
Yeah, it's called
that she does always at the seafood show in Boston.
I don't know
and
if she
all.
uses whiting, does
I
she?
think she uses whiting.
okay.
Or I thought it was red.
Well, these
I
were
thought it was
big.
redfish,
These
too.
were good sized whiting, mean looking too.
No.
And they each got one. So then now they know their fish. They got their 3 ingredients they brought with them. Now they have, I forget if it was 20 or 30 minutes to go around the farmer's market, because this took place at the farmer's market, and buy any ingredients they wanted at the farmer's market. So they got, various things and came back and spent like an hour preparing their dishes. And if you gave your email address, you could get a ticket to try one of the dishes. They gave it to the judges, then they had extra. So I tried the food that the chef at the Common Crow. So I used my one ticket to try the dish that the lady from the Common Crow had made, and it was delicious. She had taken the whole fish, I watched the whole process, and put it in a wok full of some kind of oil, I don't know what kind, and fried the whole fish, and then she picked it off the bones and had small pieces that she put with like an Asian slaw, and it was really delicious.
Oh, that sounds
Mm.
yummy.
I did
That's
not try the feather and wedge
Mm.
chef's creation. I'm sure it was good, but the judges picked the one from the Common Crow, which seemed to me kind of like an underdog situation, just like in the chef hierarchy. And I don't know how his tasted, but hers was delicious. Now this other chef from some other organization who was showing how to debone the fish and answering questions, he made a whiting banh mi sandwich,
Oh.
which I've only ever had with pork. We love banh mi, the Vietnamese sandwiches, and it was pretty tasty as well. So I kind of like some of these traditional meat dishes that people around here use fish for. It's really
It's
fun.
interesting.
Like at Trio a few weeks ago, I had a haddock piccata. Now I've only had chicken or veal piccata
Okay.
Yeah.
in the past, and it's the most delicious when you have it with
With
haddock.
haddock,
At least
right.
the
Yeah.
way they did it, it was wonderful.
Doesn't Eric do that at Passports as well? Doesn't
Yes.
Eric do head
Yeah.
of
Does
counter?
he?
Yeah.
Does he? I
Oh,
don't
I'm gonna
know.
head right
I don't
over
know.
there. I'm sure this
I'm
was
not
scrumptious.
No.
I think it's like I think it maybe it's been like some of his specials. Like he's done that before as like a special
I think
thing.
so.
This was an
Even at a
off-menu
wine
special
test
they made for me
tasting.
because they used to have it and I enjoyed it. And it was, I love when they take fish and substitute it for meat and
For-
things.
right,
It can be
right.
surprisingly.
I make sole
Fun.
piccata sometimes.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah.
That would be yummy
Yeah.
too.
Ooh, what
Yeah.
time is that going to be ready?
I want to give a shout out to Manny Simos, who captured the painting of the North Shore Arts Association sign, or is it the repainting or the painting?
I think it's
Was
the
there-
repainting.
It
I think
was.
I think
It must
was
have really faded because I
yeah,
don't
think it was
remember
very
it so much.
faded, Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's really nice to have
It looks
that.
very sharp, doesn't it?
Very sharp.
Oh,
Very
they
sharp.
repainted it? I got to go
Yeah.
look.
Yeah.
It looks
I was
beautiful.
over there last week. When did they do it?
I think it was last week. Yeah, because I had it in the show notes from last week.
Yeah.
That's
Probably right
Yeah.
after I
Yeah.
left.
yeah.
Nice.
So it's is it? We talked about we touched on this how today's the first like nice dry almost hints of fall. It's like the first like even sign of that there was. I thought it was the apocalypse. I really thought like the humidity that we've had. I thought like it was going to be the never ending. I couldn't even picture like cool weather, cool dry weather
Right.
like in the forecast.
At Costco, they're putting out like down vests.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like
Well,
93
oh my
degrees in
God.
the
School
Costco
shopping?
parking lot. It's awful. I can't even look at the stuff.
Last night I was like dragged out all afternoon. I've been babysitting for 2 days straight. I was dragged out, and then like all of a sudden it started to get cool. So I like sat down to edit at like 10 o'clock at night, and I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning
That's so
editing because it
nice.
was just like
Because,
it
yeah,
was just so. I mean, I felt
About,
like I could work.
like,
and do
9
it.
o'clock, the curtain started
Yes,
blowing out, and there was
yes.
this
Yeah.
cool breeze was coming through. I was like, oh my
But
god.
so those downpours we had yesterday were actually the harbinger. How do you say it?
Yeah, harbinger.
Harbinger of this
Of
nice,
this nice weather.
dry
Yeah.
weather.
Look, last night I found mildew on one of my kitchen chair covers, and I was like, "Oh my god,
goodness.
there's
It's crazy.
mildew."
I just bought some deck cleaner for the deck because I have like some mold
Yeah,
on the
some
deck.
mold on that.
Well, everything is
X14.
your clothes have been wet,
Yeah.
your house
It's
is
just-
wet, your
Well,
carpeting is
I
wet.
learned how to
everything
get
is
mildew
wet.
out of cotton last night, so I made a paste of kosher salt and lemon, and let it sit on the mildew stain for about 5 minutes, and then washed the covers in regular soap and a cup of vinegar
Oh, wow.
in very hot water. Because hot water is the enemy of mildew. I learned all this last night while I was trying to get the
There you go.
mildew. It was only a spot that big, but it said, what I read was if you don't get out a little spot, it grows and it eats the fabric
Sure.
as well. So,
Hints from Heloise.
yeah.
Susan, your daughter and your son-in-law and your son. We went to your house a couple week before last.
Right.
We had such a lovely visit. Your family
We
is
so enjoyed having you.
your family is so wonderful,
Thank you.
and your daughter. I think there's a problem though because I don't know. Kate has fallen in love with Susan. They like text
And
back
I
and
with
forth.
her.
They share each other like what shows like they should be watching Netflix
Podcasts.
series they should be showing.
What should we?
Dirty John.
What
like,
handbags we should be
what
buying?
hand-
and
all-
clothes.
yeah, they have a lot in common.
We do.
But now she met her daughter, and her daughter is equally as intelligent and wonderful of a person, and so, and her
She'll
daughter
be-
looks exactly like Amy, not Amy Smart, Amy.
No, what's her name?
Oh my God,
The movie star with the red hair. Oh my God.
the one that's in all the movies. She was in.
Yeah. While she was in Gloucester just for a week.
So it's Amy Adams.
Yes.
Who you
Yes, and funny quick story. My daughter, who lives in Japan, people apparently tell her frequently that she reminds them of Amy Adams. And her husband, Erjan, who I love, my son-in-law, but he's like, she's making that up. They don't really say that. So they were just here for about a week, and wherever we went in town, someone said, "Excuse me, miss, you look a lot like Amy Adams."
And
So
he
it
finally
proved her
got to
point.
hear it.
Yes, he got to
Well, I
hear
said it out of the blue
And Joey said
without
it right
that was
away when he
without
came
being
over.
prompted at all.
But Joey comes in, he always says nice things. I mean, he just has a way of making people feel
That's
good
true.
about themselves. You know, that's a
So
quality
so
that he
her
has.
son-in-law Erjan, I couldn't remember his name last week. Thankfully,
My
Now-
poor late mother used to call him something different every time she saw him.
I can imagine.
Mahjong, EJ. She had all these. She couldn't remember his name for
Did
10
she do it on
years.
purpose?
For-
Did she
for
do it on
10
purpose?
years.
Did she do it on purpose?
No, no. She
Because there's some
cattle
people
breeding.
that I
No.
totally butcher their names on
No,
purpose.
no.
No, but it sounds
His
like
name was actually Eryon in his language, but he Americanized it. He thinks it's like more acceptable to be Erjan, but no one can say that either.
Yeah.
So.
But he's
where
a
is he from? Where is it?
He
what's
was
his-
Albania.
born in Albania,
Yeah, okay.
and his father was a pro-democracy politician, and there was an attempted assassination of his father, who was the mayor of a large city.
Oh, my
So they fled.
God.
They snuck out of the country and ended up in Germany for a number of years, where Erjan was raised. Basically,
Okay.
grew up in Germany. So he speaks 3 languages with native fluency. German was the second language, and then they came here when he was, I think, around 11 or 12 years
Oh,
old.
okay. Wow. Wow.
But he's a charming guy, and he introduced
Most of the time.
well, so he introduced me to this drink that we all enjoyed, this Sazerac, and do you? I mean, I sort of remember
Yeah,
how
I know a lot about Sazerac.
So it's-
And the funny thing is, though, Erjan like tunes us out, because for years, since we took him to New Orleans, we go to New Orleans from time to time, because I can just drive there from Atlanta very easily. And we're all drinking Sazeracs and talking about Sazeracs. So we always would enjoy these Sazeracs in New Orleans. And even in Atlanta, my son has all the ingredients at my house, and he makes them from time to time. But Erjan's always like looking at his phone or watching a soccer game on the TV, so he doesn't pay attention to what we're doing. So when he came to visit this time, he ran out to the store and got all these things and brought them home. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm going to make this really great drink. It's called a Sazerac." And I said, "You mean like we've been drinking for years and you just tuned us out?" "Oh, do you know what those are?" I'm like, "Yes. Every time we go to New Orleans, we drink them by the bucketful." So the Sazerac is the official cocktail of the city of New Orleans, and it goes back to pre-Civil War New Orleans, when a man who owned a cafe created this cocktail using, at the time, cognac from France. That was the primary ingredient, which has since been replaced with rye, because in the 1800s, a lot of the grapevines in France got a blight, so there wasn't a lot of cognac, so they still wanted their Sazerac. So basically, you rinse out a chilled glass with absinthe, which was illegal in the U.S. until 2007, illegal for 50 or 100 years. Rinse out the glass with absinthe, and it has
bitters.
Has rye. All Sazeracs have a bitters called Peychaud's bitters.
And
Monsieur
that's
Peychaud was the pharmacist who owned the apothecary next to the cafe in New Orleans. Oh, Sazerac was the name of the cognac that they used in it. So Mr. Peychaud's next door with his bitters, and the cafe guy says, "Ooh, this would be good with this drink." So it has Peychaud's bitters. Many of them have Angostura bitters also,
Right.
many recipes, and then a twist of either lemon or orange.
Right,
And it's a very, and some sugar.
right.
Or a simple syrup or a sugar cube.
You put that in the drink.
You
in the
muddle
drink.
the cube of the sugar.
A sugar cube, or you could use a simple syrup, I think would be just as good.
Yeah, but I think the sugar cube is the
They-
ideal way.
That's the way they.
Yeah, that's the way the recipe
When you look
calls
at
for
it,
an
yeah.
actual sugar
Because
cube.
if you
but
make it simple syrup,
so
then
that-
it has more water in it.
So the way he made it,
Wow.
he put the glass, one hot lowball glass in the fridge.
Yeah.
He muddled with the one he was creating the cocktail in. He muddled the sugar in the bottom,
Okay.
and then he put his
With the orange peel. And
No, not
No,
yet.
after.
Not yet.
and he put his
Absinthe?
the absinthe. No,
No.
the
The
absinthe was
rye. The
well,
Sazerac rye
absinthe is a whole different
is
process.
to rinse out the chilled
Is to rinse
glass,
out the chilled
right.
glass. You
So
put
do
the
you
rye.
So do
you put the
do you put the absinthe in and then chill the glass? Or
no.
no
You have the glass.
You
You
have
have
the
the glass
glass
in the fridge.
Right. Okay.
Lowball glass.
Right.
In another lowball glass, you put the rye.
Okay.
Yeah.
First, you muddle the
The sugar.
cube.
Okay.
Then you put the rye in.
Okay.
Then you put the two different type of bitters.
Okay.
Right? You swirl it.
Yeah.
Then you take the glass out that's been chilled
in the refrigerator.
in the refrigerator.
Oh.
You pour the absinthe in. You turn the glass on its side so it coats the interior of the rim,
Okay.
and you dump out any excess.
Okay.
It's just a few drops
It's
you
just a
put
few
in
drops,
there, really,
okay.
like a
Just-
little bit.
You don't
It's
put
just
it-
to line
Okay.
to line
To coat it.
And you hope you don't
Aromatics.
hallucinate from the absinthe.
And then you get the was it orange or lemon that he used?
He used
last-
lemon, but
so he used
some
lemon.
people use orange.
And you get the rind and you squeeze it, and those oils come. You can
Yeah.
see
Go
like the
shooting
little
out, right.
come
Yeah.
shooting out,
Yeah,
and you pour that, and then you rim it with the
the citrus.
thing. And it was not over ice. It was
But
just
the glass is
but the
chilled.
glass is chilled.
Huh.
It was such
It's
a delight.
delicious.
It was delicious.
Is the rye chilled?
Nope.
No.
I put my glasses in the freezer.
Yeah, very
Now the
nice.
recipe I have
Yeah, it comes out
specifically
really
says
good.
put it in the fridge, not the freezer.
Yeah.
So it's but it's interesting. Like I'm getting into this whole cocktail thing.
Joey's just learning about whiskeys, and the
Right.
same son-in-law of mine has encyclopedic
Yeah.
knowledge of
About
whiskeys.
He watches movies about it. He
And reads
researches it,
books,
reads
yeah.
books about it, and it's interesting because there is this renaissance of like Prohibition era or 20 and 30s cocktails that are coming back, and like young
Yeah,
people are
yes,
drinking
yes.
craft cocktails.
Yeah.
And what's funny to me, and I comment on this to my kids all the time when we go out, that some of these bartenders, who they now call mixologists, are like rock stars. You'd think
Yeah.
they had invented a cure for the common cold.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
so famous for like putting stuff in a glass.
Yeah.
You know, they're just like
And they're
as famous
old, yeah.
as chefs. Some of them.
Yeah.
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 So it was anyway. In any case,
No one ever enjoyed a drink like Joey enjoyed. It was fun to watch Joey drink in the Sazerac.
Well, and then you made those incredible like crackers there, those little discs crackers,
little
the cheese.
Parmesan time crackers. Yeah.
Kate said
Oh.
that she could have eaten the whole bowl
Oh.
of them.
Well, she'd have to fight my daughter for them because those are her
Obsessed.
favorite. Yeah,
So delicious.
Rachel likes them.
But it was great hanging out with you guys.
It was great hanging out with you kids. You're so fun, and I really just love both of you.
Yeah, we have to do that more often before you leave, especially.
Yeah.
You, next hat. You're gonna put on a new hat, Charlene, as a part of the K. Ellis Scholarship cruise and
Yeah.
dinner,
Yeah.
which is tomorrow night.
Which is tomorrow night.
We part of my last week's Heath Ellis was here to speak about it last week. You're here thankfully to speak about it today, and you can show up tomorrow and be a part of this. Right?
Yes.
All right.
You can show up. It's $40. The boat
It's
is
60.
sold out.
Oh, it is sold out.
The boats are both sold out.
Yeah.
So, but you can show up 7:00 at the Gloucester House and pay $40, and the auction is really going to be great this year. There's great items for the auction.
So what do you
And,
get for the $40 other than
a-
admission?
dinner.
You get the dinner.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Mhm.
you have to buy your own cocktails, but you get the dinner.
Okay.
And Lenny always does a really good job at the Gloucester House.
Yeah, I've
He
been
puts
to,
on a really
to
super
fundraisers there, and it's been very
super
good.
buffet. His
Yeah.
food is always totally
Kay
consistent.
Ellis was a very special woman.
Yes,
Yeah,
very
She
special.
did a lot for the tourism industry. And she was one of these people that they had their own business,
Yes.
but she thought of other people all
Yeah,
the time.
and she was one of the founders of Discover Gloucester,
Yep.
and she was just. Tom says about Kay that he had the dream and she made it a reality.
Oh.
Yeah.
And she was a wonderful person, and it's sad that she's not here with us anymore.
But they've given away quite a bit of money.
We're giving scholarship. We give scholarships to people that are going into the hospitality business.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, Sam Nigro made an oar, a hospitality oar.
Oh,
that's
I
going
love
to be
his oars. Oh,
that's
they're
going
so
to be
ni-
auctioned off.
You're so lucky. To have
Yes,
one.
and he's in the past. He's always given his oars away to people. He just is kind and gives them away. This year, he gave us an oar for the Cape Ann auction, the Cape Ann Chamber auction, and his oar sold for $2,600.
Ooh,
So
nice.
he now has a value. If you have one of his oars, you
Wow.
have
Oh, no.
your value is. He said, now my oars are worth money.
That's awesome.
So he did a really beautiful oar for the auction tomorrow night. and we have a houseboat that's going to be auctioned off.
Yeah,
The
weekend.
Ramses-
stay
A
on the
weekend
houseboat?
On the
weekend
Ramses,
houseboat.
on the Ramses.
A weekend
Yeah.
on the Ramses houseboat. You know that little like aqua blue
You
houseboat
see it all
that
there
you see
that
on
you
the
come,
bridge?
Nicholas Candy?
come from the
That you
bridge.
Yeah.
From the bridge.
Yeah, the
that
weekend on the
houseboat.
houseboat. There's all kinds of different things.
With
And
Sazeracs, maybe.
Yeah.
then we have the raffle and the Pirates raffle where you don't know what you're going to get in the Pirates boxes, but you
great.
get, there's all
So,
kinds of
so you don't have to.
certificates
You don't. You can go down there tomorrow and buy a ticket and
Yes.
participate.
and
And
anybody can come tomorrow night and give us
7
$40
o'clock.
and
Yep.
participate. About 7 o'clock, the boats will be back about that time, and that's when everything will start there in the
Wonderful.
There you
Gloucester
go.
House.
you
There's
can-
so many things happening tomorrow night. We're all
Oh,
going
yes,
from one
so.
thing to another
Oh yeah, that's right.
tomorrow night because Action is having a fundraiser at Mile Marker tomorrow night.
Oh, tomorrow's that
cocktail.
cocktail one.
Yes.
Octocog or
Oh,
something.
with the mixologist.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, Charlene, how are you going to do that? You're going to be at the
So here's
What's your
because
schedule?
We
because
should take her on that motorcycle, Chris.
for the license plate, our
Right, through the
partners,
traffic.
of course, we call them our Cape Ann community partners. For the license plate are all the nonprofits. There's 76 nonprofits on Cape Ann, and they are our partners, and they have Love Cape Ann on their website, the link on their websites and all. So we support them in whatever they're doing. So tomorrow night we're going from the Drift,
right?
and then we'll
The
go
Gloucester
to
House.
over to Mile Marker,
and
and then be
zoom
back
over.
at the
Chaos.
KLS.
Wow.
7.
Wow.
We have it on. We have it on the
Wow.
blog. We'll
Good
do
for
it.
you.
So it's-
what a
Dance
schedule
card is
tomorrow
full.
night. Yeah.
So tomorrow night, this is the way it works here in Cape Ann.
Yeah. Especially
Every
the last
single
week.
night,
That-
there's
that-
about 6 things that you can go to
Yeah.
and 6 things that you can do.
It's an embarrassment of
Of
riches.
Riches here, and it's a
100%.
wonderful place. And the other thing is, it's a wonderful place. I think we should speak for the volunteers because all this stuff runs by volunteers.
By volunteer, that's
Wow.
right.
All the
So
cool
many,
stuff.
many things
Yeah.
run by volunteers. People are out there
Giving-
making things
just giving
happen
so much.
and giving a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all volunteer
It
generated.
really is a lot. Like the
And it-
Middle Street Walk, the Fiesta Committee.
Yeah, all the different things. It's
Yeah,
volunteers are making
yeah.
all these
Yeah.
big events happen and bringing people into town.
Yeah.
And this year, the visitors have been from all over the world. We're getting visitors from all
Oh,
over the
that's
world.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to give another shout out to the harbor master.
TJ
Yes,
Ciaramitaro with the E
they're coming in
as
every.
opposed to an I.
Aye.
People
A
are
distant cousin?
people
I
are.
don't think so. I don't know.
saying
Everybody
that-
raves about him though. Everybody
Oh
says
my
he's
God,
fantastic.
he's the greatest thing that ever happened to here.
Yeah.
People are coming in by boat. They radio into him. He gets them a mooring.
Yeah.
He picks them up on his launch. He gives them a packet of things to tell them about Gloucester.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
tremendous.
This is all since he
People-
became the harbor master.
People are raving about
He's
TJ. I want to get him in.
unbelievable.
Did you talk to him?
Huh?
Do you speak? Do you ever see
Yeah,
him?
yeah.
Can you tell me we want him on the podcast?
I'll tell him because he should be because this week alone 3 boats have come in and they've all come into the chamber and told me how great he is.
They
Well-
should pay
And I
him
told
more.
him you should
I
call. You
read
should
that.
go to the mayor's office and tell her how great he is. She already knows.
She has to
But-
know.
But I
But
think all the money
we
goes to the
are
guy who
so-
opens the bridge.
We are so lucky to have him. As our
I need to
harbor
tell you
master.
something. This
he
is
makes
something.
more than the governor.
This is what I need to say. Being a harbor master is one of those jobs I've always said
Yeah, it's
is an impossible job
right, and it's been
because there's so much push and pull.
Yeah.
Like people want moorings, they want this, they want that,
it's
and
been very,
everything.
it's been very thankless up until TJ. I think.
This
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't
But
heard.
TJ is making a difference.
It's really-
I haven't.
Wow.
Things are
I have not
unbelievable.
heard. I have not heard one bad thing about this guy. I've only
that's
heard good
pretty
things
cool.
about him.
No, everything
good.
he's done has been great. This launch service that he's running, and the people just they say no port they have been in. These people are coming from all over. We have people that have sailed in here from Australia, sailed from Belgium, over. They say they have never been in any port that they've been treated so nicely
That's
as this.
beautiful.
Oh, that's so
And it's
gratifying.
all. I think it's wonderful.
It
Yeah.
is.
I think he really is doing a great
He's
job.
really making a difference.
He's making a big difference.
There you go. Kim, Kim, do you want to speak to your program coming up in a couple Saturdays at the Cape Air Museum?
On September
Children's
8th.
Museum?
Right, I'm very
Children's
excited.
program?
Children's program at the Cape Air Museum. They have a wonderful program for kids on the second Saturday of every month, and so I'm going to be doing a Monarch Butterfly program geared specifically for kids. We're going to have photos and films and activities and coloring sheets and things like that, just for the kids. So I'm very excited to do that. Very honored to be asked to do it as well. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So at what time do they just show up at a certain 10 to
yes,
10 to
it's
12?
kind of an open program, 10 to 12.
Okay.
And it's totally free for
I
the
think
kids.
it's on the Cape Ann
Is it
website.
on
Or
the
I
Cape
got
Ann?
an email from the museum
Oh, you did?
that talked about
Okay.
it, I
Oh,
believe.
great.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I'm just going to get back to this one topic quickly.
What, cocktails?
Cocktails, yes.
Of course.
Why wouldn't we talk about cocktails, right? So, I've been on a Moscow Mule kick because it's been so hot out,
Yeah.
and they're so refreshing.
Who's?
Somebody's there. So anyway,
It's not mine.
that's okay.
Somebody's phone.
So,
is.
they're so cool and refreshing. It's probably Chris's. That they, that I've been into a kick in it. But anyway, I went to the grocery store to get a key ingredient is ginger beer.
Ginger beer.
And for the life of me, and I wrote about this on the blog last week, why is ginger beer so expensive? Because it's essentially just soda. It's, at the grocery store, it's like $1 a can
Okay.
Yeah.
for soda.
Yeah.
And
We just had this.
and so
we had
my,
this conversation just a few days
I
ago.
have a
too.
hunch
So-
as an MBA type why that might be, because
yeah.
of the more limited production. They don't sell as much of it as like Coca-Cola
Coca-Cola, right.
sells of
Right.
Coke Zero.
Right.
So, you have certain fixed costs, as you know, in any business, that you have to spread over the number of items you produce. So if you produce 1 billion widgets, not much of your cost has to be spread into each unit. But if you instead produce 1,000 widgets,
Right.
you've got more
So
fixed
I
cost to spread.
I agree.
I don't think they sell that much, so they have.
But they have other weird flavors that they produce.
But still, let's compare it to like Pepsi and Coke and Seagram's and.
No, but never mind that. How about the weird like lime, like Stop and Shop lime
Oh, because
brand?
that's a store brand.
Okay, but this is my point.
They're not trying to market it. A lot of the budget is marketing.
Okay, but here's my point. Moscow Mules in the last couple of years have gained enormous popularity. Yes
Yeah.
or no, right?
Well, they kind of peaked, and now I think we're on the tail end.
We
of
might be
that,
on the tail end
except
of
for
it.
you. Well,
Except for me.
you'll up that number.
But there are bottling companies, I think, that could capitalize on this because I think that they've left a lot. There's room there
There's room.
to come in with a craft ginger beer
Yeah.
and sell it for 75 cents in undercut Goslings.
Right.
Like so my thought was, there's Twin Lights Bottling,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
who makes fancy,
Yeah.
Wonderful soda.
Yeah.
wonderful
Yeah.
sodas.
Right.
That I bet people would love to buy ginger
Right.
beer. But if not them, our friends from Pigeon Cove Ferments.
Right. Would be right up their alley, right?
Because Ferment, because he's a brewer.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
she deals with,
Did you suggest this to them?
I tagged them
Well,
on
people
it.
make their own root beer.
Yeah.
Right, this is what I'm saying.
My mother used to make root
I
beer.
tagged them on it, and I just think that there is room. Yes, so that'll be interesting. I tagged our friends from Pigeon Cove Ferments.
You did.
It'll be interesting to see if something comes from it.
So can I just ask just one thing? Because I've never
Yeah.
had ginger beer. Do
Yeah.
you put is
It's
it made with
non-alcoholic.
But is it made with fresh ginger? Is that how they make it?
I assume so. That's how the homemade ones.
Yeah, I saw
Well,
a
you can
whole
make
thing
your
on
own.
Gosling. There was a thing on one of the food networks that they filmed it at Gosling, and they showed how they made it. And all.
Oh, and there was
Yeah,
fresh ginger.
yeah. It's all fresh ginger.
Where do they make it?
Is it in the Bahamas or are they
I know Gosling's rum is.
Tell the
in
girls
the Bahamas?
to check
That's where
when
they make
go
the rum
there.
too.
I know.
Yeah.
I should have had them bring back some Goslings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kate's gonna bring me some vanilla when she goes to Mexico.
I know.
That's
So-
my favorite reason to go to Mexico is to get that vanilla and the vanilla
She's-
beans.
Yeah,
That's-
my sister every time she comes back says Kate tries to do it on trips when she doesn't have a stop in between, because
Right.
if you stop, then you have to go through. You have to declare.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole
Right.
extra process. If it's a
Right.
straight shot, she doesn't have to
She
deal
doesn't
with
have to
it.
do that.
You just
Oh.
you get it when at the place.
Well, if you're not over the limit, you don't have to. You just go in the nothing to declare line.
I have
Yeah.
a niece that lives there in Mexico, so she sends it.
Oh, you're lucky.
good
Oh,
stuff.
nice.
It takes you a long time to get it. Mexico mail system isn't that great.
Yeah, why am I not surprised?
One other mention that we talked about last week and we didn't get to. That we have to make sure, because the person showed up here and we didn't talk about it.
Right.
Was the Magnolia 42nd Road Race, August 25th. Randy O'Neill came with his two beautiful children, and they were hilarious. They kept
They were
us
so
entertained the
funny.
whole time.
Do you want to post those pictures anyway, since we're talking
If you
about
send me the pictures, that way they're
yeah,
that'd be great.
I can send you the picture of Daisy and Heath.
No,
also.
Quinny. Oh yeah.
I'll send you one
Yeah,
of
send me
each.
all that, because
Yeah.
we'll put it in. We'll
Okay.
put it in here.
Put it in.
I'll make a collage out of
Okay.
it. So Magnolia 42nd Road Race is August 25th. There's a link in the show notes to register. It's a great race. A lot of the race goes by the ocean, and they have a kids 1K race that's part of it, and it's fun for the whole family. The annual South Migration is underway, Kim.
Yeah, it's so I want everybody to look to see what you're seeing on your beaches. There's all different kinds of plovers, not just piping plovers gathering, but black-bellied plovers and semi-palmated plovers.
Are they all equally rare and endangered?
No. Semi-palmated plovers are in a little bit of trouble, not as much as piping plovers, and black-bellied plovers not so much. But it's hard to keep track of them because they breed up in the Arctic.
Oh.
Piping plovers are the only plover species that breeds on our beaches here.
Okay.
And then we also have so many herons on our shores right now. They're snowy egrets, great egrets, little blue herons, little green herons. They're all gathering right now and getting ready for their southward migration.
They're
So
packing.
it's very exciting to see.
Isn't egret part of a subset of heron?
It is part of the whole family. So there's egrets and herons in the whole heron family.
Can an
So,
egret be a heron?
well, you wouldn't call it the same thing. Like there's the little, it's a little, like little blue, it's just really a name. Like little blue heron and snowy egrets are closely related. And they both have the same genus name, but they have different species names. So it's
Cousins.
all there. Yes, it's a very, practically kissing cousin. So very closely related. Let's see. The Monarchs, we're having a second
Wave.
a second wave right now, which is really exciting because I think all this hot, humid weather is really increased the breeding season around
Yes.
here. So, like, I'm seeing them all over my gardens. Plus, they're I'm finding eggs and caterpillars at the same time, and the females are still laying eggs. So, I think, but that doesn't necessarily, because we're the part of the Atlantic coast monarch migration. So. That doesn't just because we might be having a good year doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a great year in Mexico, because most of the migration always happens through the center part of the country. So we're just, some years we get more than other years.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
About the gardening thing.
Yeah.
So Kate, you've been to our house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know about
Lovely
the
place.
incredible number of
Beautiful
Garden.
perennials.
Beautiful
but,
yard.
Yeah.
but the stone, like what do you call them, beds?
Yeah.
Like we have different
Flower beds. Right.
flower beds, right?
Right.
So last year we spent a lot of time trying to get the interior of the house set.
Right.
In the meantime, a lot of grasses have grown inside these beds and weeds and
Oh,
stuff
they
like
have.
that.
Yeah.
And Kate has spent an incredible amount of time the last 2 weeks getting these beds back into real
right.
good shape. She edged
Oh,
them.
Nice.
I mean, spent a lot
Pulled
of
out all
time
the
pulling all this,
invasive
bent over.
weed. This is because of all the heat and humidity. This has been an incredible year for weeds.
I did a lot of
That's what I
weeding
was just
yesterday
saying, because
myself.
I've gardened
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
private gardens, and God, all I do is pull weeds this year.
Yeah.
It's like
So
terrible.
a question I have for you, Kim, is there something she could do now to prevent these weeds from
Yes.
coming back next year?
So because the garden there is mostly perennial, and you're not necessarily like you're not using a combination of annuals and perennials where you'd want the annuals to reseed. your gardens are mostly perennial and shrubs. So I would put a very thick layer of composted mulch on top, which if you just use straight, that either whether it's dark brown or red mulch or whatever those icky mulches are, you're really not helping the plants at all. You're preventing moisture from, you're keeping weeds out, yes, but you're preventing moisture and nutrients from going into the soil. So there's something that you can get at like Wolf Hill.
This time of year, you do
Yeah.
this?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, you could do it. You can really put, composted mulch is safe for anything. So it's really just a combination of compost and a little bit of heavier products, but it's mostly compost, and you put like a nice 4-inch thick layer on it, and that helps prevent the weeds from growing in and around the plants, and it also provides nutrients. So it's almost like a compost tea. So every time it rains, all the good nutrients from the compost go down into the soil. So it's really like,
So our thought process was, all right, we'll just leave this until next year, and then we'll mulch next year.
Okay, well,
So it's not. So we should use the compost mulch.
You can put compost mulch on any time of year because it's so safe, and especially you've weeded. You're not gonna. Most weeds don't start now at the end of August. You know what I mean? We've just seen like a big flush of weed growth. You're still gonna get some, but you're also gonna prevent weeds from that are out there now going to seed and then seeding into the garden as well. So that's why. So you can put composted mulch on any time of year, and you can get it by the truckload from a yard or from Wolf Hill. They have really nice product. They're composted mulch.
What's the best way?
And Marshall's does too.
Yeah.
We get a lot of ours from Marshall's.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
By the truckload.
What is the for my say I went with my pickup truck? Is the best thing to put like a tarp inside of it,
Yes.
and then to get it out? How do you get?
Is it
What's
in
the easiest way to get it out? Or does it come in bags?
Well, you can buy it in bags, but I would just get a truckload and have it delivered because it's cheap. It's
Not expensive.
It's not very expensive, and you don't want all that mess in your truck.
And have it dumped on a tarp.
Yeah.
Have it dumped on a tarp.
Oh,
Yes.
smart.
Yeah.
So then, how do you get it off the
You
tarp?
put it in wheelbarrows.
See, I thought it would be easy if I
With
to
a shovel.
just kind of rake it into a wheelbarrow, dump it where it needs to go
Yeah,
out
but
of my truck rather than having it dumped on
Well,
the.
have them dump it into your truck or something up high.
Yeah, whatever. It's just messy. It's just messy. So,
Yeah.
and you can hose down the truck and.
Well,
all
I've done
that
it.
kind of stuff.
I got the gravel dumped right into the back of my truck, and that was tough to get out of the
Yeah.
nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
That was a nightmare.
That was a nightmare.
Yeah, so I honestly would just get it delivered. It's
Yeah.
not
How
that
about if I
much.
laid down? I could. You know what I think I'd do? I'm gonna do what I did before with the crushed stone. I'm gonna arrange totes in the bottom of my truck. Have them dump a scoop right into the totes,
Totes,
and I
oh.
can take the totes
Right,
and just dump them
right.
where I
That would
want
be
to.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be smart.
How much?
So-
So you think a yard?
Oh, let's see, $60, $70 a yard. It's not really.
No, it's
Yeah.
not
It's
expensive.
It's not super expensive.
All right.
And
That's-
Marshall's, he's really great. He'll just come and dump it for you
Yeah.
wherever you want it.
Yeah, Marshalls
Yeah.
and Wolf Hill
Hill,
are
yeah.
both great
Yeah.
local resources. Now, what visually? What's the difference between mulch and compost mulch visually?
Mulch, composted mulch looks more like natural soil. It just looks very
This is
natural.
dirt. It's not
Yeah.
really chunks of bark, right?
No, it's
No.
not gross chunks of bark. Those chunks of bark are the worst thing you can put into your garden beds.
Yeah.
Because they really
You do not want
they,
that.
they sap
Moisture.
and they wick away moisture and they take away nutrients from the soil as well.
You know, I
So-
never noticed people putting down pine straw in their beds. Here, like in Atlanta, you just put pine straw
down on everything.
on everything, and it allows more water and nutrients to get through.
go
That's
through.
very common.
Yeah, that sounds
And I'm
nice.
just wondering why they don't. You buy bales of pine
Pine
straw, and
straw.
you every spring and fall you put
Put
it
it down.
in all your beds to.
Well, people around here do use marsh grass that's been washed and things like that, but that again, that has salt in it, and no, even if you rinse it and stuff
But
like
could you
that.
put like a little of that on top of the composted mulch to make it look better?
I think the composted mulch looks really nice.
Is that
Looks
is it
really
nice and
nice.
dark
Very
and rich?
dark.
So
It's
too.
very
Does
dark.
it stay
I
dark
mean,
and rich?
Yeah, pretty
My
much.
gardens are
Yeah.
really-
It doesn't-
Alright, that's the
yeah.
move.
These are,
Yeah.
Thank you.
they've been on the garden tour.
Especially if you have,
Yeah, it looks
Okay.
so
really
you have
nice.
a plant growing. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to have just one little blob of plant. If you had like one little blob of plant and then mulch all around it, it would get kind of dried out. But all your plants are rich and full, and they're just going to shade the soil. So
Awesome.
composted mulch is what
Great
you want.
news. Great news. Rodenticide.
Right.
So there are safer alternatives out there. I saw Jody Swenson's
Yeah.
picture of the hawk that ate the rat poison and is sick, and when
Right.
she's caring for
She
the
died.
Oh, it did die.
It died.
Oh. Sad.
So last week I put a post up about rodenticide and snowy owls, but it was part of a snowy owl post. So tonight a post is going up, and I'll send you the link about safer alternatives. And Mass Audubon did a big article on safe alternatives to second. So the problem is what you're buying in the stores right now is called, and I wrote down all the brand, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I wrote down all the brand names of the ones that you're supposed to avoid. And then if you have to buy rat poison, the ones that the brands that you should, that are safer. So what's happened is rats were developing an immunity to the first generation of rat poison. So then they developed the second generation of rat poison, which is extremely deadly to all our raptors. And raptors are the ones who are helping us by killing the rats and mice.
Right.
So what happened, and also the current second generation of rat poison is killing pets and making cats and dogs very ill as well, because people toss the dead rat that's eaten that's ingested the second generation rat poison. They toss the rat, and then a dog comes along, or a cat comes along and eats it, or even a cat is hunting and finds a rat struggling from the poison. But what happens is the rat poison prevents the blood from coagulating, so that's why they give them mega doses of vitamin K when they get when they find a raptor that has been poisoned by it. And the rat keeps going, because the second generation works more slowly. The rat keeps going back to the bait and keeps eating it and eating it and eating it. So by the time he dies, he's had like 10 times the fatal dose. And that is what then they stagger around the street or wherever, and they look very inviting to a hawk or an eagle that's flying overhead. The hawk or eagle comes and eats it, and then they get deathly ill. And snowy owls too. There are 8 snowy owls alone this year have been documented to have died from rat poison. So, and it's this new second generation, and it was originally banned by the EPA, but for some reason there's all kinds of technical loopholes. They're now allowed to have it, and children are getting poisoned from it.
Did we talk about the snowy owls last week? Because this week you wrote there's August snowy owl
Right,
sightings,
yeah.
which normally they're gone by May, right?
Right, they're
So
usually
what do you attribute that to?
Well, we had a snowy owl eruption this year, so we have a lot more. So typically you might see one, hanging around at Logan Airport into July or whatever. But since we've had so many snowy owls this year, that could be why we have, so the numbers have increased. And also I do think animals are a little confused because of the warming climate trend. I'm not sure, I'm not exactly sure why, but it seems like there's a lot of mismatched migrations going on.
Where do they
Yeah.
go? They go north
North.
in the summer?
In the summertime, right? They go back to the Arctic, to breed.
I think animals, plants, everything is confused this year.
It's a little mismatched.
Right.
So
Really.
we'll see what happens with these later
Well, not only
monarchs.
there could be several factors. The other factor might be how much. I mean, there's been an explosion in all types of birds around
right,
here,
right.
and a lot of it has to do with cleaner harbors.
Right, cleaner
Yeah.
harbors, but
Tons
also
of bees.
what
Like
scientists
rubber
also
plants.
believe what's
Yeah.
happening is that
That's
as
good.
the equator heats
Because
up
we were losing
and
people.
the North Pole thaws, we're going in this area, like 43 latitude where we are, we're going to see even more and more species. So right now, Massachusetts is the motherland of piping plovers. So we have the highest success rate and we have the most piping plovers coming to our shores, more than Canada, more than the Carolinas, more than the Mid-Atlantic states. So, and the water is cleaner in here. Boston Harbor's cleaner. There's there's more food to eat. So,
I think that's why we're seeing the whales too. There's more feed out there for them.
Right. Everything is really exploding. Right. It is. Boston Harbor, I think all the pollution that was being dumped into Boston Harbor and the cleanup has had far-reaching effects.
Yeah.
We're not that far from Boston Harbor.
Well, it wasn't just Boston Harbor. It wasn't long ago that they stopped the bubbler. The dump. You had the outfall pipe right in Boston, Gloucester Harbor.
Gloucester Harbor, right?
So
look how
all all of our poop and everything, all the people's laundry detergents,
right?
Everything went right down into the ocean,
right.
and it wasn't. It really was only. I don't know if it was 10, 15 years ago where they made everybody use the sewer.
Sewers, right? Yeah. And look, the river otters that I've been filming all summer long, they're here because the water's so clean.
Right.
I mean, the beavers came first. The beavers built little houses and lodges, and then the otters.
Did you see on the news some guy got attacked by a rabid beaver?
Oh,
it really attacked him.
What was her name?
A human. Stop it.
Happens all the time. It happens more than you think.
This isn't funny to anyone but you. So if the 30,000 people rabid beavers.
I'm just saying.
For that crap. Got that, homie?
All you have to do to avoid the rabid beavers is have the Clue app, and then you'll know when the rabid beavers are coming at you. I'm just saying, you're always opposed to the Clue app. I'm telling you, it has multi-purposes. Rabid beavers.
Do you know what TMI is?
Rabid beavers. I'll put rabid beavers. Rabid beavers is going into the show notes.
No, this man got attacked by a beaver. I mean, it was really scary.
Where did that happen?
Somewhere. I mean, it was on the local news. I don't remember.
Huh. Gee.
You told me the bears are coming. I mean,
bears are definitely coming.
It's getting dangerous around here.
How do you spell rabbit? Is it
R-A-B-I-D?
Oh, it's not two B's. It's one B.
You want to know how to spell TMI?
What is that? I'm
just
saying.
asking here for the grammar and punctuation and vocabulary.
I was surprised that you did not post that video of the shark off of Race Point. Did you see it?
Oh, the Truro. No, you know what? During the middle of the week, we're very busy here. Yeah. I'm just holding my head above water.
I didn't post it because I thought, I don't want to, step on anybody's toes. I bet you're going to post about the.
No.
So.
Guys are talking about it in the office, though.
Oh, but it's amazing because the person is standing right on shore and 15 feet. Looks like 15 feet.
Yeah.
There's the. Great.
Well, you know what Pete Mondello was saying in the office a couple of days ago, that when you turn around the corner for the Cape, there is if you saw on Google Maps, you look on a live video or something of Google Maps, there are hundreds of thousands of seals.
Right?
Yes,
right.
Seals. Yes, that's what's happening. They're all down there, unbelievable.
These sharks are coming up there.
And you know what? The people don't understand why there's so many dying, but there's so many more of them in the waters right now, and they live in such close quarters. It's easy to see why they might get a bacterial or a virus thing. That they're mammals. They can pass things along from one to the other.
Exactly.
I have to tell you something I saw with the otters that was the most beautiful thing. I've been filming them early in the morning, and I found this place where they haul out on land, and first the mom.
What do you mean by haul out?
Well, mostly you see them in the waterways, right? But they also can travel on land. So they come up. So after feeding and eating frogs all morning, then they come out onto land, and the mom laid on her back and put her legs up in the air, and then the little ones crawled all over her and snuggled.
They're the most playful. They're the coolest thing to watch ever.
It's just the sweetest thing. I was just I can't believe I'm standing here filming this on Cape Ann. You know what I mean? It was
I'm telling you, the time when I saw them playing on the dock over there and jumping in the water, it's literally it was like playtime. They're just It's very social and frolicking the whole time. I'm like,
You know what? If that
these things,
happens,
no one's having a better time than
They're
these
enjoying life.
things.
Yeah.
if you see, you know what? I would for my little. I'm just making a short little 5-minute film on them because I don't have their like birthing and all that kind of stuff. But-
She's gonna tease this right now, and we'll never see it. Just so you know,
No.
don't get your hopes up.
So, if you see them, in the ocean again, right? Will you call me? Because I'll run over because I would love to get footage of them, in the ocean.
Now that I finished
You know,
The Handmaid's
in the ocean
Tale
type.
season
I
2,
text
I'm looking
you.
for something
I
to
text you
watch.
once a week, every week when something cool's happening down here, and you never even respond to me.
Oh yes, I do.
I'm getting a complex.
Oh yes, I do. Oh.
I am.
Oh yes, I
It's
do.
true.
Oh my goodness.
I'm hurt.
Oh,
I don't ever get any
no.
news bulletins about what's going
Oh
on at the dock.
no.
If it's something to do with crumpets, I promise I'll text
Never
you.
made crumpets. I've never made a crumpet.
Crumpets.
I've eaten them.
It's
I've
so
never made them.
it's so nice having Susan here. Like she said, oh, make your iced coffee with coarse grind coffee.
Your
And
cold
I did-
brew.
Your cold brew.
You didn't know that?
No, I always just
Oh, no,
ground
that's-
it just the
that's
normal
101.
way. Yeah, it was really good that way. Did you know that?
You can learn a lot from Susan.
Yes.
We all.
Really.
The more I get to know Susan, the more in her family, how fascinating of people they are.
So, and I asked
We're
her.
blessed to have them in our lives.
We're very
Oh,
blessed.
you're very sweet. And
It's
we
true.
feel the same about y'all.
I could ask her this morning about this recipe that I saw, which is half. It's equal part. It's not baking powder biscuits. It's equal parts whole heavy cream and equal parts flour.
Self-rising flour.
flour.
The
And
only
she was
other
like- and
ingredient
she
is
was like-
optional salt, which
It's
to me is
optional
not
salt.
optional.
Right,
They
and
taste
she was
awful.
like, "Oh yes, they're
I've
very
made them
good.
10
She's
times,
made them very good." So
Of
now
course she has.
I'm going to try the recipe.
I'll tell you another clue about good biscuits. There's a restaurant in Nashville called Biscuit Love, which is the most divine place to go for breakfast. But they have these little biscuits called angel biscuits, and they're a yeasted biscuit.
Oh wow.
Now, I don't know if you've ever had a yeasted
No.
biscuit.
Yeah, I make those. Yeah.
These things, if you could look up on the internet and get a recipe for angel biscuits, they are delicious.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How do we keep you here through the winter? How does
Right.
that happen?
How does that happen?
You can't
You'll
go
have to
back.
come
We're
back
gonna be,
for-
we're gonna be
You'll have to
devastated.
come back
I have a
frequently.
life. I love it here in the summer, and I love y'all, but in a few weeks it's time to go.
All right.
But you'll appreciate me more when I come back.
Oh, what else did we? Hey, here's something else we said
It's like
about.
the harbinger of spring when I arrive.
But here's
When
what,
do you come back?
Who needs swallows? Around Memorial Day.
Around Memorial
My
Day.
family won't let
Oh.
me go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's another thing that's migrating in
but
big numbers.
but you
for
know what
swallows.
else? Do you know what else we talked about last week that got lost in the podcast notes?
What?
Was that we felt that we needed to tell you that we love you coming on the podcast, and you shouldn't feel like you have to make something every
I
week.
don't feel like I have to make something, but when my family's not here, I like to bake.
Okay.
And I was explaining
we
to
love
Kim
it.
earlier that there are a lot of things I make that involve a lot of technique. And if you don't prepare them regularly, you get rusty.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I want to keep my hand in on pain au chocolat, but it makes like 8 or 10 of them, and there's no one here to eat them. Oh, I can make them and bring them to the podcast.
Did you want to keep your hand?
So you're really doing me a favor.
Did you want to keep your hand
Thank
in
you,
on the
Susan.
biscuits and gravy? Did you want to keep your
No,
hand?
I
in?
only make those when I usually just make those in the South.
Do you make
biscuits and
fried
gravy.
chicken?
I do make very good fried chicken. I brine it, and then I have a special mixture. I make very good fried chicken. Now, I usually will make biscuits to go with
Yeah,
that.
that's
Because it's hard to eat fried chicken without biscuits.
biscuits.
Yes.
I only make fried chicken once a year because it makes such a big mess in my kitchen. I make it
I'm
for my son's birthday
I'm
every year.
craving biscuits and gravy
Yeah.
right now.
Biscuits and fried
I
chicken.
would go get some biscuits and gravy today. My mom's kitchen isn't open.
What, do they do
Did you ever
biscuits
hear
and gravy?
Larry the Cable Guy
Yes.
talking
Moms
about
does biscuits and
the edible
gravy.
underwear?
I
And
You
he
didn't
wants
know
the
that?
biscuits and gravy flavored.
Biscuits and gravy flavored
Larry
underwear?
the Cable Guy talks about it in one of his routines.
Do you like Ron White?
I love Ron White, yeah.
I would think that you
All
would
those
like Ron
people,
White.
yeah.
Yeah.
All those sarcastic people.
I
I
grew
love
up
them.
in biscuits and sausage gravy. I grew up on because
This
my
place is-
grandmothers are both from Nashville. So
Oh, wow. Well, there you go. I saw pictures of you. I've seen pictures of you when you were a younger woman. Charlene was an absolutely stunning.
She still is.
She's no. She's definitely still is. But what we're talking about, like, she was a stunning young lady. Like
Who could make
the
fried
pictures.
chicken?
I've seen the pictures.
What more
You were a
could
model.
want?
Were you a
I
model?
was a model.
Yeah.
I was discovered
Your husband
in
was
Paris
your
by
husband was
accident.
so handsome too.
Yeah.
Your ex, well, not your ex-husband. Your husband passed, but
Late husband.
late
My
husband.
late husband.
Late
My
husband. But
ex-husband.
what a beautiful. I mean, what a gorgeous couple they were. I mean, just absolutely beautiful. You
Well, I
should-
had an Irish, black Irish husband.
Oh wow.
From the south of Ireland, only second generation American. So
yeah, beautiful couple. Beautiful
Just-
couple.
Now I don't know. I can't stop thinking
Totally
about fried
missed.
chicken. No matter what else you talk about, I'm going to be
no, I
running
make,
home and making the brine.
no,
I
I,
can't
make
stop
fried
thinking
chicken.
about
And I
Biscuits and gravy.
soak mine for one day in buttermilk like my grandmothers did.
I do that sometimes, but now I use Thomas Keller's methodology. He's my hero in the chef world, and he grinds it
Yeah,
and then fries it, and it is delicious.
yeah.
Really good.
So sausage and gravy I can bring you because I've learned when I was a little girl, like about 5, to make biscuits.
You don't have to
my
bring it. We'll just come over. It'll
My-
be easier for you.
I can't leave. No, I can't leave. She
You
has
can't
to bring
leave.
it.
My grandmother used to make biscuits every single morning.
Oh.
Every
Yeah, a
she
lot
had
of
this
people
big
do.
bowl,
In the South,
and
they
there was
do.
already
It's
flour.
not a
and
northern
everything in
thing.
there.
It's totally a southern thing.
I agree.
Very few people.
Every morning.
That's why I was surprised to hear that Mom's Kitchen makes biscuits and
Yeah.
gravy.
I
But
had to go
Chris,
to
this week we're gonna have to
Say-
make a special trip.
Do
And
they,
then,
do they make fried chicken too?
I don't know if they travel well on the bike.
Do they make fried chicken?
Someone's here.
All
I
right,
can make you fried
GloucesterCast, GloucesterCast 293 is in the books. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Hopefully.